In the midst of rapidly shifting international relations, few figures stand at the intersection of such intense scrutiny and speculation as Professor Muhammad Yunus. Emerging from the vibrant heart of Dhaka, the capital of Bangladesh, Yunus has become more than just a Nobel Peace Laureate or the founder of microcredit. He is now the subject of a complex geopolitical dance involving superpowers, regional ambitions, and the very ideals of democracy itself. To understand the current political landscape surrounding Yunus, one must look beyond headlines and official statements, delving into the deeper gamesmanship and rivalries at play, not only within Bangladesh, but extending to the halls of power in New Delhi, Washington, and Beijing. The stakes become immediately apparent in the very first moments, set against the backdrop of a secretive residence in the leafy enclave of Dhanmondi. Here, away from public gaze, alliances are forged, strategies are discussed, and the carefully crafted personas of public figures are both shaped and dissected. It is within this confidential setting that Professor Yunus emerges as a pivotal actor, not merely as a national figure, but as a key variable in the regional calculus of power. To truly appreciate Yunus's growing prominence, it's vital to recognize the layers of attention surrounding him. On the surface, he is a celebrated Bangladeshi economist credited with pioneering the microfinance movement. Yet, as the world watches the multifaceted collaborations and tensions between Bangladesh, China, and the United States, Yunus's profile acquires new symbolism. Both Washington and Beijing, despite their strategic rivalry, find reason to rally behind him. For their part, both powers perceive the influence Yunus wields domestically, his international reach, and his appeal to Bangladesh's intellectuals and civil society. It's a rare convergence of interests, one that has not gone unnoticed by those most invested in maintaining the regional order. Nowhere is this more evident than in India, whose media landscape has become a battleground of conflicting narratives. In recent months, major Indian outlets have framed Yunus as a divisive figure, linking his advocacy and international connections to a supposed threat against the regional status quo. Through editorials, televised debates, and investigative reports, Indian media channels project a dual image: Yunus as both an instigator of diplomatic unease and a manipulator of Western sympathies. The fervor is unmistakably political, yet it is cloaked in the rhetoric of national security and democratic stability. This portrayal is not accidental. India's political elite faces a conundrum. While it wishes to undermine Yunus's standing inside Bangladesh and with key partners, it must tread cautiously so as not to jeopardize its own hard-won reputation as a democratic standard-bearer in South Asia. Therein lies the crux of India's dilemma. Any overt threats or actions against a Nobel laureate, particularly one supported by the United States and China, risk international condemnation and could undercut New Delhi's broader diplomatic agenda. And so, Indian media narratives are carefully calibrated, sharp enough to discredit, yet vague enough to avoid direct allegations that might boomerang on the government itself. While Indian coverage broadcasts a sense of urgency and even alarm, the calculations behind the scenes are more nuanced. India recognizes that Yunus's rise coincides with broader shifts in Bangladesh's foreign policy, the country's efforts to balance relations with both its restive northern neighbor and the wider international community. For Bangladesh, cultivating ties with both the U.S. and China represents more than a balancing act. It's an assertion of regional agency and an attempt to diversify partnerships in an increasingly multipolar world. Yunus, as a respected global figure, provides a discreet yet powerful conduit for dialogue across these sometimes competing interests. This unique confluence, where two rival global superpowers appear to support or endorse a single South Asian leader, marks a rare achievement in diplomatic terms. Usually, South Asian leaders must navigate the tension between pleasing Beijing or Washington, rarely both. But in Yunus's case, his personal credentials, association with international development, and reputation for nonviolence have enabled him to transcend typical divides. His advocacy for poverty reduction and entrepreneurship resonates with America's soft power agenda. while his willingness to engage with China's development vision adds another dimension of appeal. For India, this convergence represents both a challenge and a warning. It cannot easily dismiss Yunus without drawing attention to its own ambiguous positioning in the larger geopolitical rivalry. There is also an unavoidable symbolic dimension at play. By opposing Yunus, India risks appearing insensitive to popular movements and human rights, values it claims to champion on the world stage. Thus, Indian strategy involves a twin-pronged approach, publicly questioning Yunus's motives and downplaying his influence, while privately ensuring that diplomatic lines remain open in case the calculus changes. Inside Bangladesh, these international currents have filtered down into the domestic arena, catalyzing a media-driven, non-violent movement aimed at shaping public opinion. Various Bangladeshi outlets, often with input or inspiration from neighboring media, have engaged in an energetic campaign to challenge Yunus's credibility, raising doubts not only about his economic philosophies, but also about his global alliances. This movement is characterized not by mass protests or overt state repression, but by an ongoing psychological contest, waged through social media, editorials, and strategic leaks, that seeks to define Yunus's legacy in the eyes of the public. Supporters of Yunus argue that this campaign amounts to psychological pressure designed to marginalize reformist voices, distract from governance challenges, and maintain the dominance of entrenched political interests. Critics counter that scrutiny of a public figure, particularly one with such expansive influence, is simply a necessary feature of democratic accountability. Whatever the truth, the result is a highly charged political landscape where every action, every association, and every utterance by Yunus is analyzed, interpreted, and spun by actors with competing agendas. This interplay of psychological pressure is not without consequence. As the stakes rise, so too does the potential for political miscalculations. External actors, including diplomats, journalists, and think tanks, watch closely for signs of escalation or détente. The potential for diplomatic friction is real. Should India's criticisms become too pointed, or should external support for Yunus morph into formal political backing, the region could witness a new round of diplomatic maneuvering. Amid these swirling uncertainties, one thing is clear. Professor Yunus sits at the crossroads of a deeply interconnected regional puzzle. His prominence, built on years of advocacy and a vision for inclusive economic development, now carries weight far beyond the borders of Bangladesh. The world's superpowers see in him not only a symbol of reform, but a strategic partner in their ongoing contest for influence in South Asia. Meanwhile, India wrestles with the complex legacy of its own diplomacy, seeking to preserve its interests without sacrificing credibility. As the story unfolds, the secret gatherings in Dhanmondi, the heated debates in Indian newsrooms, and the whisper campaigns across social media all point to a new phase in regional geopolitics. The contest over Yunus is more than a personal struggle. It is a bellwether for the future of diplomacy, sovereignty, and public opinion in one of the world's most dynamic regions. How this contest resolves itself, whether through accommodation, confrontation, or some new synthesis, will offer important lessons not just for South Asia, but for the wider international community watching closely from afar. In sum, the volatile landscape surrounding Professor Yunus illustrates not only the personal risks of influence in a contested region, but also the profound ways in which individuals can become lightning rods for broader political anxieties. The interplay of support, suspicion, and psychological maneuvering continues to shape his path, a path that embodies the turbulent, ever-changing face of international relations today.